Hello, today is Tuesday, November 11th. So I have some Indiana news for you, and it's actually a story that I have been working on, I would say for the last 2 weeks. So if you are in the state of Indiana and if you are in the beauty industry, so we're talking about cosmetologists, estheticians, if you provide any of those services, I want you to take a listen to this story because there has been some issues taking place within that specific industry along with what the licensing board has been saying lately. So here it is. I interviewed actually an Indiana esthetician and then somebody with a cosmetologist license because they are basically saying, and along with other small businesses, are voicing deep concern over some sort of regulatory shift or a new law, which actually isn't new, but the strict enforcement of an existing poorly communicated one that effectively prohibits people from performing their core services that they have in their business structures. So this unexpected interpretation jeopardizes businesses built entirely on beauty treatments like lash and brow services. So from what I gathered at the beginning, estheticians were saying that as of October 1st, services like lash perming, lash lifting, lash tinting, brow lamination, brow tinting, and microneedling had been pulled from their scope of practice, leaving many to wonder if they can legally continue to operate in their scope of business. I did actually reach out to the licensing board clarification on specifically that. I have an answer for you on what they said. Let me just get through the rest of all of this. So I interviewed a lady. Her name is Jessie Rice. She's a licensed esthetician, runs her own business called Opal Aesthetics out of Lady May Hair and Skin Company that's over in Westfield, Indiana. She describes the situation as a basically uproar, stating that communication from the Indiana Board of Cosmetology and Barber Examiners has been basically non-existent when it comes to this issue. She says, from what they have here, and again, this is all hearsay, that estheticians are no longer able to provide lash perming, tinting, lifting, brow laminations, any brow tinting. She added that microneedling was also banned, now exclusively allowed only under the scope of nurses and doctors, even if the esthetician works with a dermatologist. She says, in quotes, this has become such an uproar and a problem because there are a lot of estheticians around the state that only offer these services and their whole businesses is built off of those lash and brow services. She also said that the sudden change is basically forcing estheticians to either close their doors, pivot their entire business model, which is obviously a pretty difficult task. So the new restrictions have been compounded by a confusing licensing situation. She works with Maggie Owen. She is the owner and has a cosmetology license of Lady May Hair and Skin Company. Again, that is in Westfield. These services apparently are now deemed okay to perform under a cosmetology license because it involves chemically changing the hair. Maggie Owen, like I said, who's a cosmetologist, offers a lot of these services within her salon, explains that it can create an unsustainable gap in the market. And this is her quotes of what she's saying for the interview. She pointed out that cosmetology schools often do not want to teach specialized lash and brow techniques, forcing estheticians to provide or potentially spend another year and thousands of dollars on a cosmetology license just to do services they already offer without even wanting to learn traditional hair services. She also stated, because she is a salon owner, that the whole logistical information of all of this is just a complete nightmare. She says that most salon spaces, which are often a booth rent model, are not set up with a dedicated bed and a private room required for these longer services, further limiting where clients can get treatment. So what I'm getting out of this entire situation is that essentially there seems like to be a lack of communication and accountability. Both professionals stress the severe lack of official communication from the state of Indiana. They claim that there has been no written communication to license holders about the effective ban, forcing professionals to rely basically on things that are happening in social media, Facebook posts, hearsay, digging through meeting notes, etc. I went ahead and contacted the Indiana Professional Licensing Agency because I wanted to get a statement about, okay, what exactly is going on? Is there a new law? Is it in effect October 1st? Or is it something that just hasn't been enforced, and then all of a sudden now out of nowhere it's starting to be enforced, which is now causing the confusion and the uproar within the beauty industry in the state of Indiana? So I spoke with a lady. Her name is Emma Yarber. She's the Director of Legislative Affairs and Communications for the Indiana Professional Licensing Agency. So she states, and this I have in quotes, we, PLA, which is the Professional Licensing Agency of Indiana, are not aware of any recent changes to the law regarding the scope of practice for estheticians. The statute covering the scope of practice for estheticians has not been amended since 2017, and there has been no recent rules by the State Board of Cosmetology and barber examiners covering the scope of the practice either. Yarber confirmed that the board does not have the authority to create new statutes and that any change or expansion to the scope of practice must come from the legislator. She advises professionals seeking change to reach out to their state legislator and advocate for such change. Regarding enforcement, this is the other question I was having, whether it's the law or is it all of a sudden enforcement that's happening out of nowhere. Yarber noted that the PLA compliance team does enforce scope of practice issues during inspections, but then she also added, we are not aware of any official discipline related to the specific scope of practice issues you mentioned previously. She explained that consumer complaints are investigated by the Office of the Attorney General before being brought to the board for any potential disciplinary action. So there's a really big, contrast between what the business owners are saying and like their lived reality compared to what the board is actually saying about what is happening here. So basically what I'm finding is that there is just a really big gap in terms of communication, what PLA is communicating to the business owners and the cosmetologists and the estheticians in the state of Indiana, and what is regulated within the state as well. It says, or what I've put in here says, with the PLA advising professionals to lobby the legislator for change and estheticians grappling with immediate financial instability, urgent clarification is required from state officials to stabilize the market and ensure Indiana business owners can operate with confidence in their license and in their future businesses. So I know this is a long story. Again, this is something that I've been working on for the last 2 weeks. So they are going to continue to have conversations. That is specifically what I got from the board in the state. And so what I know now is that estheticians and cosmetologists are going to continue to have these conversations and try to figure out how to exactly get to the bottom of this so that everybody can continue to keep practicing with all of their businesses that they have within the state.